Good morning, everyone. My name is Hamilton Mathis, and I get the opportunity through my research project to look at how schools are a major influence on the culture of our kids, and so or how it affects them culturally. And as I first got this project, I got this assignment. I really didn't think a lot about how school would affect a student outside of maybe peer pressure, which is something that we're looking at in this class, and then also the stress, the need for high academic success that comes with being a teenager. And so I thought maybe those would be huge, that would affect our students culturally. But really, as I dove into the research, it really went a whole lot deeper than just peer pressure or just culture of how, or just peer pressure or just stress, but something deeper than that, and how the culture that is set up in the school and the climate that a child sees and the curriculum that's put in place, it really helps to affect and mold who our students become as adults, and as ultimately it helps influence their faith. And so I think all of us would hope that school would fall maybe in that third category of most influential when it comes to culture. Hopefully behind the family first and the church second. But for so many of our kids who are impacted by high academic stress and by their peers and by the climate and the culture they're put in, for so many of them, one of the biggest influences for them culturally is their school. And the reality is that it's the leading factor in who they become adults for so many. Who they could become as adults for so many of our teenagers. And so today, how does school culture affect our students? And so first, I would say it affects them culturally. Professors Freeberg and Stein evaluate school culture as the norms, the values, and beliefs that are put in place by leadership in a school. And so the culture that is put into place by a group that is over the school and is in charge of the school, they really set that culture of what is going to be taught into a classroom. And it is not noticeable as much to a student. It's more behind the scenes. It's more X's and O's, and it's less seen by a student. But it is highly impactful for that student, and that because that leadership sets a culture. That leadership sets that culture that is taken into the classroom by teachers and by faculties. And it sets up, our students for what they're being taught and what they're being allowed to do and what they're being allowed to learn and what they're not being allowed to learn. And so those types of things really set them up. In my research, one of the things I recently found was a quote by NBA basketball coach Doc Rivers, and he tells a story about how he was in a classroom, and his dream was to be an NBA basketball player. And so he wrote that on the board during a classroom session, and the teacher went up and erased it and said, "You can't do that. That's not a goal. That's not a dream. That's not something achievable for you to be able to do." And so she made him write something else, and so he wrote it again. He did it 3 times, and every time she told him, "That's not a dream. That's not achievable for you." And that speaks to the culture that many schools put on our students, is that we tell them that they're not able to achieve something. We tell them that they're not able to attain something, and that sets the tone for their education. Simply because a culture tells a student, you can't be this, you can't do this, or you must be this, or you must learn this, or you must do this. You must. I know for so many of the students that I come in contact with, you must go to college. You must get this kind of job. I know that's a huge thing for my community, and so I think we see in the research that as Freeberg and Stein that state that culture is huge in the development of a school and development of education. The second thing that Freeberg and Stein also go into is they differentiate between culture and climate, and that environment that students actually see. That climate is developed by the culture that is set. And so the climate is, according to Jerome Freeberg and T.A. Stein, is what a student feels and what a faculty member feels and what a teacher feels in the classroom, and how that is fleshed out from the culture, but also how it looks practically and how it impacts the day-to-day for our students emotionally. And so schools provide either a toxic environment or a growth environment. That climate for so many of our kids can be so positive and can really take them to the next level in their growth and lead them to be better members of society and better and have more of a growth. But it can also be toxic. It can also take them in the opposite direction, and how the culture of a school can really set a student up to not be successful when in a different environment. They would have so many more opportunities for growth, much like the example of Doc Rivers that I shared. And the third thing is developmental, and for kids developmentally, for our students, school is where so many of our students establish their minds to who they will be. This is done through the impact that is put on them, and how they are influenced throughout their time in school. And so I just want to take a couple minutes. There's a video by Andrew Hammond, who is the Senior Director of Learning and Community at Discovery Education. And in this video, he explains how the effects of education on the child's outlook and the importance of culture and of curriculum, and how we focus on curriculum so often rather than culture in the lives of our students. And so we're going to watch this quick video.
I had to move on. We conflate the word results and learning performance too often in schools. And they're not the same thing. They're not the same thing at all. The results are the output. We know that. They're fixed. I don't mean fixed, but they're set. They're done. The input is the learning performance. We have to look more closely at learning. We have to look at what it means, and I think it means growing. But here's the thing. Growing isn't mentioned much in school. It's called making progress, isn't it? But growing is what childhood is about. But here's the interesting thing. Nothing stunts growth more than sorting and ranking. It's entirely incompatible with growth when you think about it. We have to look at what lies behind the grade. And I think behind the grade are attitudes, behaviors, and capacities. There's your ABC. That's the one that matters. We can't see it behind the grade. We're scratching the surface only. There are deep down things to my son, to all the children I've taught in my 20 years, which cannot be encapsulated numerically alone. And that iceberg is reminiscent of the curriculum itself. There are deep down things that are being learned at school every day, in the environment and culture of the school. If the visible curriculum above is entirely based on propositional, theoretical, abstract knowledge that we teach in learning objectives, then the curriculum below is based on empirical knowledge, experiential knowledge, tacit knowledge that comes to us through our sensory explorations and social encounters. If the visible curriculum above largely requires you to apply logic, deductive reason, verbal reasoning, non-verbal reasoning, computational capacity, knowledge retention, then the curriculum below asks for instinct, intuition, inquiry, empathy, creativity. It is the curriculum below that is real. The curriculum above that we plan, teach, assess is entirely abstract to the average primary child. It is the curriculum below that is real because it is founded on their emotional state. How we feel is what's real. It's the link to what we think, said Eric Jensen. And I agree. And yet we say it's a hidden curriculum. We have to look really closely at what reality looks like for children. We have to look at how they learn. And what reality looks like for most children, in my experience, is that they learn subconsciously from most of their primary school experience, osmotically, from the environment in which they're in, driven by their emotions. It's set. It programs our subconscious for the rest of our lives. That's me, aged 7, 42 Just realized it's 40 years ago. 40 years ago. My subconscious has not changed. The hopes, daft dreams, likes, dislikes, fears, little insecurities, wild ambitions, things I thought I was good at, things I thought I was no good at and never would be, have not changed. And none of those things were formed meaningfully by the visible curriculum I was taught. They were forged in the crucible of the classroom where I formed my own model view of the world and my own view of myself. And they've not changed all these years. What can we do about it? In a few seconds, it's the culture of school that matters. It's the deep down things, the way we do things around here, that ultimately affect children's view of the world. And it's set, it's programmed for a long time afterwards. It's a culture that delivers self-respect and then that all-important self-discipline. Those I know who lack self-discipline invariably lack self-worth and self-respect. So why be disciplined? It's the self-discipline that gives us the vision, a meaning, a purpose, having a plan, seeing the point, and reaching our potential. It's the culture of the school, how we do things around here. You know those platitudes you see on websites and on school prospectuses, kindness, aspiration, all those really important things, collaboration, pride, ambition. It's those things that need to be lifted off the page. And what do they actually look like? Because those things are forging children's view of the world all the time, every day. Gives them self-confidence, helps them participate, step up, take a role, derive some value from it. And ultimately, I hope, have some positive well-being. It's the shared beliefs, the core values of the school that ultimately affect children's success and happiness. Maybe it's true of work too. Maybe it's the culture of work that ultimately affects our output, not the targets and not the deadlines. It's how we do things around here. Maybe it's true of home too. How we do things around here are helping to form and forge children's character. To close, I'm fed up of hearing life is short and you've got to get on with it. An 8-year-old said that to me the other day when they were busy writing a whole page of writing. My heart nearly died. Not least because I was nearly 40 years older than he was. Life is long, but childhood is short, and it's getting shorter. And we've got to stop calibrating it. If we don't, we'll lose it. And we'll be calibrating and testing and self-examining and self-assessing and self-doubting for the rest of our adult life.
As I got to see Mr. Hammond's outlook on how curriculum and how school affects the culture and the culture for our students and how they set up moving forward into adulthood, it blew my mind. And throughout my research, just the effects that it has and the things that he talks about and the things that I found in other research, that it affects their self-discipline, whether that's positive or negative. It can take them in the correct direction, or it can put them into a situation where they lack that self-discipline. One of the huge areas I think that we've seen in this class is also self-worth. If they're in a positive environment in school and culturally, their self-worth can grow, and they have that growth mindset and a high value for themselves. But also, if they're put in an environment where it is 100% performance-based achievements, and they see themselves as exactly what their grade is, rather than who they are as a person and who God has created them to be, it can be negative, and it can take them in a different direction. And their self-worth. And I think so often this performance-based achievement we see in school, it leaks over into their spiritual walk as a believer. And so as they see themselves as, I'm just a grade, I'm just a letter, I'm just a number, it takes them into a mindset when they interact with God on a spiritual level, that I'm the negative that I've done, or I'm the positive that I do, and my worth to God is based on my actions and the positives and the negatives. And so I think so often we see that how that school mindset and how the schools impact our culture and our ministries. And so from the research that I was able to find, and from the videos and the things that we've seen today, there is zero question that school has a deep and profound impact on every single student that you and I are able to interact with as leaders in the church, and that's the school is one of the number one impacts on our students that we see day to day.